Good evening, Bahamas. You're tuned into NB12. Coming up tonight in news. Could government postpone the implementation of value-added tax? More PLP MPs speak out against the gaming bill. The touching story of a 6-year-old boy's brush with death. 2 major Junkanoo groups protest a new judging system. The details of those stories and a whole lot more are on the way. I'm Winnie Toot, and NB12 starts now. Topping news tonight, amid growing unease about value-added tax and its implications, Prime Minister Christie has revealed that government may consider pushing back the July 2014 implementation date. Government intends to implement VAT at a rate of 15%. However, Christie insisted that the new VAT regime would only be introduced when he is satisfied government is ready and the public is prepared.
July has been established as a date, but for me as Prime Minister, right, the date in my mind is when the government is in a position to satisfy me that implementation, that it's ready for implementation.
Just 8 months before the proposed implementation of value-added tax, many Bahamians still have no idea what it is or how it would impact the cost of living. Then there are those local business owners who have been quite vocal in recent months about value-added tax and what it could mean for their businesses, particularly their profits. In fact, the Bahamas Chamber of Commerce and Employers Confederation's Coalition for Responsible Taxation strongly recommended last month that government postpone the July implementation date. However, Christie suggested it may not happen then.
That's not a July or August or September or October. That is the real assessment that we are ready for it and that the country is ready for it in terms of the preparation of businesses.
As Minister of Finance, Christie says the final decision rests with him.
So yes, there is a target date. Yes, we are still moving towards that target date. But at the end of the day, I reserve the right, and let it be known to be so, as the Minister of Finance, as the Prime Minister of the country, together with my colleagues, right, to determine at every stage of the way, right, what it is we're doing and how it should be done.
The Ministry of Finance will start a series of workshops for businesses next Wednesday. The ministry will also host a town meeting for consumers next Thursday. We'll tell you about that a little later. And in other news, 3 more Progressive Liberal Party MPs have criticized government's gaming bill, saying they do not support the bill's discriminatory elements. Marco City MP Greg Moss and Michael MP V. Alfred Gray say they do not support foreigners being able to do something in the Bahamas that Bahamians cannot. Exuma and Ragged Island MP Anthony Moss said he was glad debate on the bill was postponed because he was not prepared to support it. Not everyone was willing to openly share their views, though. Deputy Prime Minister Philip Brave Davis did not offer a position on the bill, but said he is listening to the cries of the people. Well, Prime Minister Christie says he finds some PLP MPs' opposition to the bill very interesting. However, he didn't seem too happy with comments made earlier this week by Dr. Andre Rollins. As Gaming Board Chairman, Christie said Rollins would have to play a key role in helping to administer the same bill that he harshly criticized.
There is always the right way to express themselves. Obviously, when they take another way, it is a decision they have made. With respect to all of them, the only concern I would have is that for Dr. Rollins, who happens to have a substantive position that is directly connected to the bill as drafted, and that clearly he has to have thought of all of the consequences, all of the implications.
On Sunday, Rollins said he would not support the bill because it discriminates against Bahamians. Christie would not specify what consequences Rollins may face, but said the gaming board chairman must have made an informed decision.
Consequences are that nothing intimidating again and threatening. It's just that when you are chairman of the gaming board, a consequence is if you are to speak against an act that you have to administer, then you've made your position a very difficult one in doing so.
Christie says he'll see what position Rollins takes when parliamentarians debate the gaming bill. The Prime Minister would not say if he personally supports the bill, but asserted that when a party takes a position on a bill, personal views don't count.
You either are against it and you therefore say, I'm prepared to take this particular position, or you are a part of the collective grouping as a party and your personal views are not really relevant to that consideration.
1 week after riding a mile and a half during the Ride for Hope in Eleuthera, a 6-year-old boy experienced a brush with death while riding his bike in a western New Providence community. It came nearly 8 years after his parents suffered the heartbreak of losing a child. Kendia Dames has the remarkable story of little Thomas Robinson.
The story of 6-year-old Thomas has proven to be quite inspirational for so many people. Friday, November 1st, was one of the most horrific days in the lives of his parents, who got the call of this accident around 5:30 p.m., just minutes after leaving home.
Tina Clanaris Robinson and her husband Curtis had just left home on their way to dinner Friday evening. Their 3 boys were getting ready to go inside with their babysitter after riding their bikes in their quiet Nautica community. Thomas was making one more round on his bike just outside their home when his chain came off and he could not stop.
And our friend who was driving her car was going very slow, but poor little Thomas started to panic a little bit and couldn't quite make the turn in time, and he fell off his bike and he slipped under the car, and the tire actually went over his shoulder right across his back. And it was a pretty big SUV, wasn't it, Thomas?
Within 2 minutes after leaving home, Tina and Curtis got the frantic call. All she remembers are screams and hearing the name Thomas and something about a tire. Their world stopped. They went flying back home. Thomas had already been placed in a car to be rushed to hospital.
As they opened the car door, I just saw his face was purple. And he had blood coming out of his nose and his mouth, and his eyes were full of fear, and he was responsive, and I said, Thomas, the only thing I could think of to say was, you're going to be okay, Thomas. You have angels with you.
What did Thomas say?
He says, I'm not, Mom. I'm not okay. I can't breathe. My chest hurts. Yeah. And I just kept saying, you're going to be okay. God is with you. Your angels are with you. You're going to be okay. But inside, I didn't know what to think. We had lost a daughter 7 years ago, and there was a lot of trauma that was coming up again, and it was probably the most terrifying time of my life. And you know, we were in the car. We didn't wait for an ambulance, and we were trying to get through rush hour traffic, it was just terrifying.
Thomas's family calls his survival a miracle. 2 doctors just happened to be in the area at the time the accident happened. The Robinsons can't help but to point to what they see as more than just a coincidence. At the same time those 2 doctors were saving their son's life, some of Tina's relatives just happened to have been in church on the day when 2 saints were being remembered. Those 2 saints, well, they just happened to have been doctors who helped people in their time of great need.
They decided to take a walk, and we actually saw them walking past our house as we left. We said hi to them because we know them. And they were the ones that, there were so many miracles happening, but the Dr. Naveen who saw all of this happening, she screamed and she said, stop, when she saw the car. And so the car actually stopped on top of him. But had she not said stop, the driver would not have heard, and the tire would have gone completely over him, crushing him. So in that moment, that was the first point where his life was saved. But then as the driver, who is our dear friend, who is also traumatized by this, but as she got out, she quickly, got back in the car and reversed.
The two doctors who happened to be walking by were Dr. Sam and Nivian Kalini. One of them pulled little Thomas from under the SUV. He was unresponsive and had to be revived twice at the scene. Tina recalls the frantic moments in rush hour traffic, not knowing if her little boy would make it. Minutes after arriving at the hospital, all she and her husband could think to do was pray. In fact, Tina sent a message to Facebook friends asking everyone to pray as well. She said she was determined to tap into the power of prayer. Thomas was rushed into a 3-hour surgery. His lungs had collapsed. His diaphragm was ruptured. His stomach was in his chest. He had a lacerated spleen. This scare for the Robinsons came nearly 8 years after they lost their baby girl in childbirth, after Tina's uterus ruptured from top to bottom.
Losing a child is one of the worst things you can experience, but we always say Thomas came along a year after, and he helped us to heal in so many ways. It's our blessing. And I think you realize when you go through tragedy, and so many of us do in our lives, what's important is that we have community and that we have people around us and that we can express our stories and we can share. And what we found, what our family found, was that it was very healing to not only share but to be witness to the stories and life experiences of others.
Remarkably, Thomas has no broken bones and only spent 4 days in hospital. He remembers only some of what transpired at Nautica last Friday.
I remember slipping under the car, but I don't remember when I was under it.
What do angels do, Thomas?
Help you. I tried to turn.
You tried to turn?
Yes.
Yeah? You think you're going to get a new bike?
Yes.
Yeah? You're going to get back on a bike?
Yeah. My dad's friend is getting me one.
Oh, your dad's friend is getting you one. Well, we hope you're able to ride again real soon.
Thank you.
The little boy with the sweet smile and brave heart is expected to make a full recovery.
Thomas's family is, of course, grateful to the doctors at the scene that day, to the doctors at Doctors Hospital who operated on him, saving his life, and for the tremendous outpouring of support from people who heard his story. Reporting for NB12, I'm Candia Dames.
Since losing her daughter, Tina has traveled to Rwanda 3 times doing charity work and hearing stories of people who have suffered unspeakable loss. She started the Mean Foundation in memory of the baby girl that did not live. The foundation does charitable work and is committed to linking people through stories. Next week, the foundation will facilitate the visit of one of the lost boys of Sudan. Alphonse Dang's story promises to transform the heart, mind, and soul. He will share his experiences during a special event at Van Bruegel's restaurant at 6 p.m. next Tuesday. Still to come, the financial secretary talks value-added tax. That story and more after this break.